Just for the record, the police generally don't like it when you drive on the wrong side of the road.
Tell me about it.
I was late to the party watching Daria, the beloved monotone queen of 90s sarcasm, and being the title character of the MTV spin-off show to Beavis and Butthead, she was originally crafted as an intellectual foil to the Unga Bunga Boys, and I appreciate how MTV took a chance on making an animated series aimed predominantly at female viewers. But that doesn't mean us lads can't appreciate it, and running for a total of 5 seasons, the show has stood the test of time, now looked back on fondly for its late 90s nostalgia overdrive, and its many notable characters, from your cliche vapid high schoolers to clueless authority figures. These are people that you would grow to appreciate. In this video, however, we're not here to discuss Daria herself. Instead, we're looking at a cancelled project that's about a sidekick's sidekick, so to speak. A project that was announced, mutated, and that quietly vanished into the void. MTV's spin-off known as Jodie. Originally titled Daria and Jodie, this revival aimed to revisit the characters of Lawndale High supposedly after they would have graduated college, and in 2018 MTV made headlines announcing a new push into animation. With the launch of MTV Studios, this was a new creative division dedicated to producing reboot, revival, and spin-off content, all of which was based on their catalogue of popular IP. Pitched as a reboot/continuation of the original series, it makes sense to focus on Daria, but why the sudden focus on Jodie Landon? Portrayed as an overachieving and hyper-capable individual, she wasn't necessarily a main character, but she did have some progression throughout the original show, and truthfully, I felt sorry for her, because she just had to be perfect. She was constantly living under pressure to excel at everything, and being the token black girl in high school, there's the representation to consider. She felt obligated to be a positive role model and an inspiration for minorities, a theme which is touched on and mentioned several times throughout the series.
But at school, I'm the perfect African American teen, the role model for all of the other African American teens at Lawndale. Oops, where'd they go?
In this continuation, we'd supposedly pick up following the title characters navigating young adulthood in the modern world, but sadly this was not meant to be. With a shifting creative vision, Daria was soon out of the picture. Instead, the revival would solely focus on Jodie. So, what changed exactly, and why did Daria and Jodie become just Jodie? Well, in 2020, Comedy Central ordered a full series, which then changed in 2022, where the concept became an animated feature film. And with Daria now out of the picture, the story sees Jodie enter her first job post-college at a Google-like tech company, and it was described as full of satire, social commentary, with the classic workplace absurdity you'd expect to see from other workplace comedies like The Office and Office Space. In my opinion, it sounds pretty generic, but was pitched as a bold new take that would explore themes of Gen Z adulthood, corporate culture, personal identity, and systematic inequality. And of course this loops back to the themes of representation, and all of this is portrayed through the eyes of a smart black woman navigating spaces where her race makes her feel singled out. And I found it interesting how her high school sweetheart Mac would have also featured, but didn't really appear to be a major focus. Even though on paper it may sound like any generic office-based sitcom, the Daria-adjacent tone could have been interesting to further explore. On the other hand, how come the project shifted from a full series to a standalone film? Well, a lot of this boils down to speculation, but according to reports, apparently it was less risky to make the Jodie spin-off into a film. At the time, MTV Studios was rebranding content specifically designed for streaming, therefore a film would seemingly be better to market rather than committing to a full series. Having said that, even with a completed script and having voice talent attached to the project, Jodie has disappeared into development limbo. At this point, years have passed, and much like Trent's band Mystic Spiral, it just never got off the ground. There's nothing official about its current status other than a report from 2024, and here it was stated that it's not moving forward with MTV and Comedy Central. Confirmed in an article dropped by Deadline, it suggests that the producers may be able to find a new home for the Jodie film, but nothing further has been said about this, so the project still remains in limbo. And I think it is fair to say the film may have been completed, but we don't know this for sure, but sadly, it's unlikely that it'll ever see the light of day. Of course, I could be wrong, and the morbid curiosity in me does want to see it. On the other hand, are we really missing out on anything? I respect how the original show handled Jodie as a character, showcasing representation without it being forced and preachy. From her parents being so hard on her to being Miss Model student, she took on a lot of responsibility to be a figure of admiration, and I'd arguably say this resonated with viewers because Jodie refused to allow blatant racism to stand in her way, being a high achiever as a character. In reference to those points, I'd recommend checking out the Season 4 episode, A Partner's Complaint. Daria and Jodie are tasked with learning about how to acquire a loan for a business startup, and the bank manager ignores Jodie, even describing her as a high-risk client, with the obvious insinuations, and that's until he learns about her father's successful business reputation. All of a sudden, she's not such a high-risk client anymore, therefore changing his prejudiced opinion.
Maybe we can work something out.
Why? You don't give loans to high-risk applicants. Unless maybe you're hoping you'll get a little business from their fathers.
Now, Jodie...
My father's the same high-risk color that I am, you know.
It sounds as though this is the level of social commentary we could have expected from the Jodie film, looking at a token black girl facing challenges in the corporate tech environment, and Jodie would therefore face the modernized take on these struggles, updating her voice for a new generation as she stands up for what's right whilst keeping certain levels of satire. You could maybe argue that the biting wit and anti-authoritarian themes across the original series feel more relevant now than ever before, but then again, the charm behind the show is heavily embedded in the 90s culture and social attitudes of the time. When compared to the return of Beavis and Butthead, this reboot works because the characters remain the same. Rather than capitalizing on nostalgia, the show readdressed the formula, allowing these two knuckleheads to commentate on the absurd changes to modern culture. In comparison, I'd say Daria as a show is more serious and narrative-driven. In a world where satire is dead, these characters could not hold up a reflective mirror like they did back in the 90s. Everyone's already doing that, so the characters would need to evolve into maturity, and sadly, I feel this would take away from what made the show feel so special being a product of the time. If there's one thing to maybe take away from this unreleased Jodie film, it's that sometimes you just can't go back. Daria as a series and Jodie as a character captured something different for a generation struggling to make sense of their emotions. Trying to recreate this theme in a postmodern world is difficult enough, without it being a blatant cash grab of nostalgia. Of course, these ideas are based on what little information we have about the unfinished film and its trajectory. You never know, a fresh perspective from a somewhat marginalized character could have made for a thoughtful statement about the corporate world. Who knows, maybe one day we will find out. Anyway, that's going to do it for this deep dive into the lost Daria spin-off film, Jodie. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave me a like down below. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this project. Is this something that you would like to see one day? As always, I love hearing your thoughts and opinions. And for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?